Evening, my fellow human beings. Dion here. It's no secret I'm in the metadata world on behalf of all our future loved ones as yet to come. It is my firm belief that they'll be deserving a fair go when it comes to how they spend their time on Earth. And in so many ways, that's on us, my fellow human beings. You know, it's not like they'll get much of a say in how we spent our time on Earth. Yet everything we do with our time will very much relate to their time on Earth, as in actions, consequences, finite nature, planet, all that sort of stuff. So, that's who I represent. Excuse the stuff, I've got a bit of a breathing issue going on, so, it is what it is. So that's who I represent in regards to why I'm in the metadata world. The why, that's a two sides of the coin sort of scenario. One half of the equation is the personal journey side of things, which is, I call it short form, the democratically based GMS equation. Slightly longer version, a totally transparent, totally education and equality based, totally sustainable global co-op, a global mission statement written for all, by all. So that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is I was always going to get involved anyway. Since nearly half a century ago, I've had a very big passion in regards to Earth and everything about us and Earth. I'm a very, what's going on sort of person in regards to that. I had my head in the National Geographic by the time I was 5 years old. By chance, both my parents collected the magazine, so there was always stacks of them lying around the house. And if I wasn't doing that, I was out and about, climbing trees, hanging out with mates, swimming in the ocean, that sort of thing. It's changed now, but back in those days it was a little bit different. I grew up, I'm a Kiwi by birth. Kids could get out and do things, and it was a relatively safe world to do it in. Sort of hard to explain. It was a world where people didn't lock their doors, because it was just that sort of world. Obviously it's different now, but that's the world I grew up in. So if I wasn't with my head in the National Geographic, etc., I was out there doing things. It was a fantastic life to live, I've got to say. It was something else. These days kids are hanging out while, the bulk of us are in the cities. I grew up in a semi-city right on the edge of the bush and the ocean sort of thing, but these days most of our kids are growing up in the cities, and if they're not on here in the metadata world, they're hanging out in the streets. And it's just, parents are off working 60 hours a week, both of them, just to try and pay for mortgages, etc., whereas back in my day, when I was a child, as near as I can tell anyway from what my elders used to tell me, there was a world where one adult could work in a two-parent family and afford to look after the family, maybe have a little holiday, have a little bit of a vehicle to get around in, and own a home. Just the basic, basic dynamic sort of thing. And I'm not saying that's how it can be in this day and age, because we live in a world now where there's several billion of us, and not all of us may be able to own vehicles and homes. So, we're going to have a look at the logistics, acquisition, distribution side of things as we go. But yeah, I've always had, long story short, I've had a bit of a passion about our Earth for a long time now, and I was always going to jump on the metadata on the internet once it came about. For a long time there, I didn't know what medium I was going to use. In my early 20s, I had a very real chance to step into the world of politics, but I didn't take that path. And not too long after that, I started realising the internet's going to be a big thing. So here I am. 15 years ago, I jumped on here, give or take. MySpace days. Got involved back then. So two sides of the coin, GMS, and I was going to get involved anyway. So here we are, and I'm on home stretch. I'm on the home stretch side of things these days. Give or take, by the end of this year, I'll have any lingering questions that I want the answers to. I'll have those answers. I don't need documents or written format, anything, or to get those answers. I'll just know in my head based on how I proceed through this year. It's just the way it is. So I'm on the home stretch side of things, and so I've got a year to sort out what I want to do online. And well, by my observations, we got a lot of stuff to sort out. What's on my mind at the moment? I won't go near any of the serious stuff at the moment. Well, it's all serious, but I won't go near population, personal faiths, cultures. I'll just leave that alone in this moment. Talk about something else that's it's always been on the radar for me. Teenage years, I wouldn't say I was a bad kid, but I was out there and living my life pretty early years. Not that my parents sort of knew back then, but by the time I was 14 sort of thing, I was out backpacking around New Zealand and sort of seeing what's going on. So I saw a lot of the, on the streets side of things, and it can get a bit rough and tumble at times. Back in those days, the worst I ever saw was, knives, that sort of stuff, hand weapons, that sort of thing. Not to say that I got involved or anything. There were occasions where I've had to defend myself, etc. But I wasn't that sort of person as such. And as years went on, and things happened, and I ended up in Melbourne, Australia, from New Zealand. Times changed, etc., etc. And I started noticing a difference in regards to what people tended to carry around on them, and I'm talking guns. That sort of weaponry became more common as I got older. It didn't really impress me. A number of years back, they had a big sort of embargo here in Australia. Well, I don't know if that's the right word, but an amnesty sort of thing. People could hand in their weapons, so to speak. And a lot of people I knew back in those days actually had guns. It was just the way it was. But I also know that the bulk of them handed those guns in because, even though it was an amnesty at the time sort of thing, to not hand in illegal weapons back in those days and then get caught out with them into the future would have been problematic for them, legally speaking. So, a lot of the guns that I knew of back in those days disappeared off the streets pretty quickly. But I've never been a fan of that type of weaponry. And I can tell you right now, a couple of occasions, one of them I've had handguns stuck in my face, and another occasion I got a shotgun stuck in my face, and another time a rifle stuck in my face. So, I've been on the other end of that stick, so to speak, and it's not a pleasant place to be, I assure you, but it is what it is, but via all that process and the younger me and knives, etc., then the guns, I came to realise that I'm not a fan, and I was never going to be a fan, and when I jumped online, I specifically beelined one thing, and that was the whole right to bear arms side of things. Doesn't sit well with me. If we're living in a properly functioning global community where we've got it all together, top to bottom, we're an actual functioning global community. We're all getting on, we understand what it is, we've communicated, negotiated, and the majority of us have landed on this is what we are, and a part of what we are is we don't have the right to just bear arms simply because we can bear arms. If it's all right, as in we're a functioning global community, we're at peace, we're not at war, etc., etc., then by my mind's logic, if our police forces are appropriately set up and to their core values, the principles are all correct and in place, and oversight and all that side of things is working properly, then why, and they're appropriately armed for what society is, how do they need to be appropriately armed, then why do the rest of us have to carry weapons, is where I'm at, mindset-wise. And I used a pretty common sort of idea, like I used to go nightclubbing a lot in my early 20s. Now let's say I walked into I'm qualified to martial arts, that sort of thing. I did a lot of trained up for security industry, etc. when I was younger, so I'm qualified to take care of myself. Now let's say I walked into one of those nightclubs in my 20s with a couple of knives tucked away, and I was there with the intent to hurt people, keeping in mind I'm trained up to hand defence sort of stuff. how much damage could I potentially do before basically people jump all over me and sort me out? He's doing wrong, let's sort him out, sort of thing. How much damage could I potentially do? And I'm a big boy. I'm 6'5". I'm 99 kilos now, but I get a little bit bigger. In my youth especially, I was very fast. You couldn't get near me, sort of thing. I was quick. So how much damage could I potentially do to walk into a nightclub under that situation with a couple of knives tucked away at that point in time? Now, to change the dynamic a little bit, if I walked into that same nightclub at that same point in time with a couple of high-powered weapons hanging off the side of me, I'm talking high-powered weapons, how much damage could I potentially do before people get a hold of me and sort me out? Now, let's not forget I've got high-powered weapons on me, handguns, rifles, shotguns, whatever, plus I'm trained up in regards to you get near me, I'll take you out, sort of thing. I'll knock you to the ground real quick. How much damage could I potentially do in that scenario? I think we've got it all back to front in regards to, I get it's our right to protect our family and this and that and everything else, but if we've got a properly functioning global community going on, then the overall dynamic should help us out in a big way in regards to that side of things. We've got to be very careful with this sort of stuff, because the dynamic we have going on at the moment, we're at a lot of tipping points, not only environmental tipping points, our internal problems, our internal dynamic. We've got a lot of tipping points going on there as well. As in, if we can't keep it together and we start falling apart, us, internally, as well as we go over the edge with some tipping points with our environmental problems, then what's going to happen when if the bulk of us are armed to the teeth? We've got no chance of holding it all together at that point, is my calculations. We get no chance. And I wouldn't, it'd still be, you can't get rid of knives, etc. We need knives, it's just part of the world, but it's a lot less in our faces if it's not high-powered weapons, so to speak. So, yeah, I know which country I'm talking about, and it's pretty obvious, the right to bear arms sort of thing. Bring it on, if you want to discuss it, sort of thing. It's no skin off my nose. We can talk about it till the cows come home. We'll just keep going around in circles, and we'll end up with a basic, fundamental, logically based, thought pattern sort of process. And we'll go right back to the nightclubs. We can look at it from 20 different angles if we must. But it is my firm belief that we don't need to be armed to the teeth simply because we can be. It doesn't add up to me. So yeah, that's what I came into this chat thinking about. Where to from here? Wow. My fellow human beings, we kind of need to come down to earth in regards to how we're going about our business on this finite nature planet that we reside on. I say here and there that we're down the rabbit hole in regards to our all-consuming ways, how we're constantly seeking out short-term profit margins-based outcomes via the economic system that we live by. But it's a little bit more dire than that, I think, my fellow human beings, and it's down the rabbit hole. That's a bit of an easy way of looking at it. In my mind, I've known that I'm a subspecies of mammal and I reside on a finite nature planet from there 50 years ago. And maybe it's just me, I don't know, I can't be in other people's heads, but I've always looked at it as, as quick as I knew that there was a curve in the earth and it's all finite, and the system we live by is not finite in nature in regards to how it functions, as in it's a growth-based system by design, I knew there was a problem there. So when I say down the rabbit hole, our all-consuming ways, is it really that simple? Because I quickly picked up in my youth that there's an issue there. So why haven't we all picked up on that same thing, as in we're all here going, what's going on? Why are we doing this? It just doesn't add up. because that's not what's happening. And to go a little bit further, you jump online and try and say, well, do we really need the capitalism economic system? You'll actually get people come at you sort of full on. Like the first time I jumped online, back in the day, about 14, that amount of time ago, I actually had people full on coming at me going, we've got to get rid of that guy. He's a problem. He's a communist. We're capitalists. He's a communist. He's got to go. Now, back then, it was no skin off my nose. You're all right, mate. You want to talk about it. Don't worry about threatening me. Talk about it. It's all good, mate, But all things aside, that's a pretty... How do we get into that sort of place where that sort of scenario is playing out? So it's a little bit more complicated than we're just down the rabbit hole when we have people consciously behaving in that type of way. And to this day, it's more rampant than ever, and especially the last couple of years where a particular metadata world multimedia platform that I could easily name, the whole propaganda, misinformation, disinformation side of things has just gone into overdrive. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that's the other side of that side of the coin that I was speaking about, where people are quite intentionally, they've gone well beyond down the rabbit hole side of things, and they're actually consciously trying to beat down, if you want to put it that way, any situation where people are trying to step up in regards to what are we doing about our climate change problems. As in, we're a subspecies of mammal, we reside on a finite nature planet. If we want to talk about our longevity as in on an intergenerational level as a species, then what are we going to do about it? And then you get these folk that are sort of doing that thing, taking that type of approach. And that's just an example. You can come at it from multiple angles. We've actually, from everyday people like me that are just born and bred consumers, as I tend to say, to our public representatives. Right across the spectrum, a lot of us are actually, I feel, actively working against the truth of the situation. Now, whether it's a conscious behaviour with this type of stuff, or whether it's unconscious or learned behaviour stuck in the mud sort of stuff, it's any which way, it's a serious problem, because it doesn't matter what we do, that the situation is not going to change in regards to us staring down the barrel of a mass extinction level event scenario, of our own making, no less. That's not going to change. It is what it is, and either we step up and address it, or we don't. Now, part of the stepping up is we're going to have these type of folk coming at us all the time. It's just the way it is. So really, you can't, if we want to do it in a systematic, logical way, where we need to sort of find a common ground where we all come together in common ground. We negotiate our way to a common ground where we can all sit down and have a bit of a discussion about where we're heading as a global community. What's our bigger picture? What's our long-term objective? And I mentioned this in my last chat, and I'll mention it again a few more times as we go. I call it point B in regards to why I'm online. We need to have a totally transparent, all-in discussion about what's our long-term objective as a global community. Now, if we get to that point, as quick as we get there, I assure you, in regards to me, I'll be suggesting that we only work in 100-year blocks. It's a pretty straightforward sort of, children, parents, grandchildren, 3 generations. We need each generation to pass on the knowledge, etc., etc., etc. We kind of need to work in that time frame minimum to be able to make it last, so to speak, make it a long-term sort of deal. If we're going to keep with the 4-year political cycles approach, it's just not going to pan out. We're doing that currently, and have a look at it. The only thing that's stuck is the system we live by, our growth-based capitalism economic system. Through all the other stuff, we stand firmly by that, and that's, I think it's more learner behaviour, stuck in the mud sort of stuff at this stage. But we have to break through that barrier, as far as I'm concerned. Not break through, but we need to negotiate our way through those types of barriers and land in that place where we're having that all-in discussion, and we need to start knuckling out our long-term objective. And we need to factor in everything. Cultures, personal face, populations, infrastructure, logistics, acquisition, distribution, the lot. If we're going to take that type of approach, then we need to be thorough. We cannot leave anything out, and well, if we do, it has to be done in such a way that we don't have to rewrite the whole book as such. We just, well, like our constitutions of this day and age, in a way, I guess, we have to make amendments as we go. But at this point in time, if we're going to have this discussion, we need to lay the groundwork in a very solid way so that they just make amendments as they go. Like, let's say every 10, 20 years, we all have a bit of a sit down and go, okay, how are we going? And we do a bit of a reassessment, and we make some adjustments as we go. But it has to be long term. We have to have our base groundwork in place, the foundations. That has to be rock solid, and from there forward, logically speaking, we should be able to just adapt as we go and make a few alterations. Okay, this is what's changed since the last time we sit down and had a chat. What alterations do we need to make? What's been going on, etc., etc., and we negotiate our way to what are we going to do about it, and we make the amendments. But unless we have that rock solid foundation in place, we're going to be in a bit of trouble. And like I said, long term, none of this 4-year political cycle sort of stuff. It needs to be long term, 100-year blocks, I would suggest. We could stretch it out further, but 100-year blocks, it's not a bad place to start. Theoretically, by my mind's logic, the further we get into the future and the more solid that foundation gets, we should be able to stretch out that timetable, maybe 150 years, etc., etc. But we need to start somewhere, and I wouldn't recommend starting anywhere below 100-year blocks. It's just, we can debate it, we can come at it from any angle we want. I'll keep circling back to the logic of it all, and we can go through it, and I'm pretty confident we will land back on, give or take that time period. So anyway, what's the time? I can't quite see it. I haven't got my reading glasses on. These are just my normal glasses for walking around. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Odds on, I'd say I'll upload this chat. Here on out, we're going to have to take a little bit more serious approach in regards to subject matter. Maybe personal faiths, maybe cultures, maybe population, but they're my next 3 major thought patterns that I want to get close to in regards to these sort of chats. I'm not talking, real scientific documents sort of stuff. I'm talking about we all need to understand what's going on here, so we can't not overcomplicate things, but it needs to be in a format that we can all just understand. So it'll be pretty straightforward sort of stuff, yet it'll be very serious, as in, I'll probably be stepping on toes in a very polite way, but especially with personal faiths and population, odds on I'll be stepping on some toes, but it's just the way it is. I cannot change any which way I've looked at it. It's a subject matter that we have to, or 2 subject matters that we have to cross or broach, so it's just the way it is. But I'm hoping that we can negotiate our way through all that sort of chit-chat and land in a place where we start setting the foundations for our long-term objective side of things. So yeah, that's it. I'll leave it there, my fellow human beings. Can I say thanks for putting up with me over the years. The fact that I'm still in the metadata world to this day and age, where there was times where I didn't think I was going to make it, sort of thing. I am very humbled and very appreciative for that side of things. I could go into the hows and whys, but it's not necessary. I'm just extremely thankful and humbled for the opportunity to take a swing at it, so to speak. My word of honour, I will not do anything that's intentionally in any way trying to make the situation worse than what it is. And if by chance I do make there's a bit of a hiccup along the way, or I make a mistake in regards to how I present myself, as sure as I do that, I'll rein myself in and tell myself off as such, and I'll do it in a very public way, because that's not how I move in life, and it's just, I'll address it immediately, sort of thing. But yeah, I'm very humbled for either what I see as a fair go, very thankful, appreciative. It's just, you know, I could come at it from 20 different angles. Yeah, cheers, thank you. What else? I'm going to go cook myself a feed. I'm getting a bit nibbly, so yeah, time to cook myself up a feed. Truth of my little world out here is if I don't feed myself, I don't get fed. But that's all right, all good, because I actually don't mind the whole process of cooking myself a feed. Didn't like it in my younger years, but I don't mind it these days. It's all right, I like it. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Regards, Dion. Peace to you and all, including all our future loved ones as yet to come. Gone.